BTS, known for revolutionizing the K-pop world. But in August 2020, they unleashed something truly out of this world. Dynamite, a song that became a global sensation, shattering records and hearts alike. But what made it so special? Tonight, we dive into the explosive success of BTS's Dynamite, the song that took over the world. From its very first second, Dynamite was set to break history. As the song skyrocketed to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, BTS did the unthinkable, becoming the first K-pop group ever to achieve this milestone. But that was just the beginning. But Dynamite wasn't just a hit. It became a worldwide movement. From Seoul to New York, Rio to Tokyo, fans everywhere were connecting, dancing, and celebrating in unison. It wasn't just a song. It was a cultural revolution, with BTS leading the charge. In a year where the world faced uncertainty and chaos, Dynamite became a symbol of hope. BTS's message was simple: stay positive, stay energized, and keep shining through the darkness. And that's exactly what their fans did. Dynamite wasn't just a moment, it marked the beginning of something bigger. With BTS continuing to push the boundaries of music, culture, and connection, this song will forever be remembered as the track that changed it all. As for the future, the best is yet to come. From Dynamite to the world stage, BTS's impact will last for generations to come. This wasn't just a song, it was a moment in time that defined a new era of music, unity, and culture. And it all started with the explosion of Dynamite. Behind every epic performance, there's a team of artists working tirelessly. BTS's Dynamite wasn't just a song, it was a meticulously crafted piece of art. From brainstorming the retro theme to perfecting every dance move, let's take a look at the magic that happened behind the scenes. One of the standout features of Dynamite was its bold retro theme. Inspired by the 70s and 80s, BTS brought back the disco era with vibrant colors, funky suits, and infectious energy. But how did these style choices come about? Let's take a closer look at how Dynamite's fashion became as iconic as its music. The success of Dynamite wasn't just about the music, it was about the fans. Known as ARMY, BTS's global fanbase stood together, supporting the group every step of the way. Their passion for BTS is unstoppable, and the connection between the band and their fans has created something truly magical. Social media turned into an explosion of creativity. From TikTok dance challenges to trending hashtags, Dynamite was everywhere. Fans didn't just listen to the song, they became part of the experience. And with BTS leading the charge, their influence on social media became undeniable. And then came the view counts. Within hours of its release, Dynamite set a new record for the most views in 24 hours on YouTube. The video continued to break milestones, eventually surpassing billions of views, an incredible achievement for a group that has already redefined the global music scene. Dynamite didn't just mark a milestone for BTS, it changed the game for K-pop as a whole. With their breakthrough on global charts and their ability to cross cultural barriers, BTS paved the way for countless K-pop artists to find international success. As BTS continues to evolve, so does the legacy of Dynamite. This song will forever be remembered as the catalyst that ignited a global revolution in music and culture. With their journey just beginning, the best is yet to come. Stay tuned for the next chapter. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the explosive success of Dynamite. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more BTS content. Until next time, keep shining like Dynamite. The magic of Dynamite isn't just in its infectious melody, it's in the message. The lyrics, full of positivity and hope, resonated with millions of people around the world. In a time when the world needed light, BTS gave us a song to lift our spirits and remind us that no matter what, we can shine bright like Dynamite. From the early days, BTS has continually evolved, experimenting with different genres, styles, and themes. But Dynamite marked a key moment in their journey, blending the energy of past hits with a fun, upbeat disco style. It's a natural progression in their musical evolution, but one that also brought something completely new to the table. The visual aesthetic of Dynamite was just as important as its sound. From the eye-catching retro outfits to the vibrant, nostalgic set design, everything was perfectly crafted to create an immersive experience. BTS didn't just make a music video, they created a visual masterpiece that perfectly captured the joy and energy of the song. BTS's choreography is legendary, and Dynamite was no exception. Every move was meticulously planned to capture the song's high energy and infectious vibe. Their signature synchrony and precision brought the song to life, and fans around the world rushed to recreate the moves themselves, keeping the momentum going long after the music video ended. BTS's achievement of topping the Billboard Hot 100 with Dynamite wasn't just a win for the group, it was a monumental moment for K-pop. With this success, BTS proved that K-pop could dominate the global music scene, breaking cultural and language barriers along the way. BTS's global influence reached far beyond the music charts. With Dynamite, they didn't just create a chart-topping hit, they changed the music industry. Success of Dynamite opened doors for more K-pop groups to break into the Western market, and it proved that music knows no boundaries. As time passes, Dynamite will remain a defining moment in BTS's career and a forever classic in pop music history. It wasn't just a song, it was an era-defining track that connected millions of people across the globe. And as BTS continues to conquer new heights, Dynamite will always be remembered as the spark that lit the way. BTS's influence extends far beyond their home country of South Korea. With each album, they've gained a massive following across the globe. Their rise to international stardom wasn't just about their music, it was about breaking cultural and language barriers and uniting people from all walks of life. BTS's influence reaches far beyond music. They've become global ambassadors for cultural exchange. Through their songs, they've brought people from all corners of the world together, transcending language, ethnicity, and nationality. With Dynamite, they continued to prove that music is a universal language that unites us all. The very title of Dynamite symbolizes a burst of energy, light, and positivity. But it's more than just a catchy title. It represents resilience, joy, and hope. In a world filled with uncertainty, BTS used this song to remind us that we are capable of igniting a spark, even in the darkest of times. The success of Dynamite was nothing short of extraordinary. When it hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, it cemented BTS's place in history as the first all-South Korean group to achieve such a feat. Their place on the charts is not just a triumph, it's proof of the power of their music and the reach of their global influence. BTS's influence goes far beyond music charts and awards. They've touched the hearts of millions through their authenticity and message. From fan art to emotional tributes, ARMY continues to show their unwavering support. They are not just fans, they are a global family, united by a shared love for BTS and the light they bring into the world. BTS's ability to connect with artists from all over the world speaks to their global influence. From Halsey to Megan Thee Stallion, their collaborations broke barriers and solidified BTS as one of the most important global acts in modern music. And Dynamite was the perfect song to open the doors for even more exciting partnerships. BTS's journey is far from over. With each release, they continue to push boundaries, creating music that resonates with fans across the globe. While Dynamite will forever remain a milestone in their career, we're just getting started. The future holds endless possibilities for BTS, and fans can't wait to see what's next. BTS's impact on music culture and the world is undeniable. From their powerful lyrics to their energetic performances, they've brought joy and unity to millions. Dynamite will always be a part of their incredible legacy, lighting the way for future generations of fans, artists, and dreamers. When Dynamite finally dropped, the world held its breath. Fans everywhere clicked play, eager to hear the song that would change everything. And as the first notes hit, there was an explosion of excitement. This was BTS like we'd never heard before. The making of Dynamite was a collaborative effort from the entire BTS team. From their creative input to working with top-tier producers, every detail of the song was carefully crafted. This is where the magic happened, where the passion and energy of BTS turned into the hit we know today. A music video is more than just visuals. It's an extension of the song's energy. From the vibrant retro-inspired costumes to the mesmerizing set designs, BTS put their all into creating a music video that perfectly matched the upbeat tone of Dynamite. Every shot, every angle, was designed to make the viewer feel like they were part of the excitement. The reach of Dynamite wasn't confined to South Korea. It transcended borders and cultures. Fans from every corner of the globe were united by the infectious beat and uplifting lyrics. From TikTok challenges to trending hashtags, Dynamite became a worldwide phenomenon, and BTS's army only grew stronger. BTS's success can't be measured by records alone. The true power lies in the connection they've built with their fans. ARMY isn't just a fan base, it's a global community united by love, inspiration, and music. Dynamite was just one more way BTS shared their hearts with us, and we've reciprocated with unwavering support. BTS has been at the forefront of the K-pop revolution. With Dynamite, they not only made history, they helped shape the global perception of K-pop. What was once considered a niche genre is now a worldwide force, and BTS's journey has opened the doors for countless other K-pop artists to follow in their footsteps. From breaking streaming records to topping global music charts, BTS continues to shatter every expectation. With Dynamite, they didn't just create a hit song, they made history. Their reach has expanded beyond music, becoming a cultural force that influences everything from fashion to language. When BTS dropped the Dynamite dance, they sparked a global movement. Fans everywhere recreated the choreography, and it became one of the most iconic dance challenges in recent history. What started as a fun routine turned into a worldwide sensation, further cementing BTS as global trendsetters. BTS's influence is felt in more ways than one. Beyond music, they've inspired millions to give back to their communities. From promoting mental health awareness to supporting global humanitarian efforts, BTS and ARMY are making a lasting impact in the world. ARMY's love for BTS knows no bounds. The fan base has been there every step of the way, from the early days to global superstardom. Their dedication is seen in every streaming party, fan-made tribute, and powerful moment where ARMY unites to celebrate the group's success. BTS's style is a cultural phenomenon. From runway shows to streetwear, their fashion choices have shaped trends worldwide. They've become more than just musical icons. They are also style icons, setting the stage for fashion's future. BTS has been a powerful voice for mental health awareness. By speaking openly about their own struggles, they've encouraged millions of fans to do the same. They've proven that it's okay to not be okay, and that mental health should always be a priority. BTS has always been at the forefront of social issues, and environmental protection is no exception. They've used their platform to raise awareness about sustainability, encouraging their fans and the world to take action to protect the environment. BTS has inspired not only their fans, but also fellow artists across the world. Through their hard work and authenticity, they've paved the way for new talent in the music industry. Their influence is far-reaching, helping to shape the future of global music. ARMY has proven that when they unite, they can change the world. From charity drives to social justice initiatives, BTS's fans have proven that they are a force for good. They follow in BTS's footsteps, using their influence to help those in need and make the world a better place. With each award, BTS continues to break records and make history. From the Billboard Music Awards to the American Music Awards, their impact on the music industry is undeniable. These victories reflect their hard work and the unwavering support of ARMY, marking a legacy that will live on for generations. From their debut, BTS has continuously pushed musical boundaries. With each album, they've reinvented their sound, blending genres from hip-hop to pop and even disco. Dynamite was a new chapter in their evolution, proving that BTS isn't afraid to take risks and explore new sounds. BTS's journey is far from over. With Dynamite being just one chapter, the group is already looking ahead to their next musical project. What will BTS bring next? Whatever it is, you can be sure that it will be another groundbreaking moment in their illustrious career. BTS has forever changed the global music landscape. Not only have they brought K-pop to the mainstream, But they've also shown the world that music has no language barrier. BTS has opened doors for international artists and made the world of music more inclusive and diverse. BTS's legacy isn't just about the music they create, it's about the hope they bring to the world. Through their lyrics, their actions, and their voices, they've inspired millions to believe in themselves, stay positive, and keep fighting for a better future. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through BTS's Dynamite and their impact on the world. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories of BTS's amazing legacy. Until next time, let's keep shining together.